What's up, everybody? I'm Zach. This is Derek. We're from QB Klass here at Reception Perception. And today we're going to be looking at UNC's quarterback, Drake Maye.
All right, the first clip we've got here is from first game of the season, actually, against South Carolina. Kind of a rivalry game. Don't usually get those at the beginning of the season, but anyway, I thought this was a fun one. This, to me, is probably Drake Maye's best quality, which is when he gets pressure looks, he does, I think, a sensational job at understanding how to get away from it, how to keep himself clean, how to buy himself time. Obviously, you see here before the snap, they're an empty inside the red zone. 6 dudes on the line of scrimmage, only 5 offensive linemen. I'm not the best at math, but they're a little outnumbered there up front. So that means quarterback's going to have to account for 1. They're going to slide the protection from right to left and kind of just pinch it across and leave one of the free runners off the right side for Drake Maye to handle. And so what he's going to do is he's just going to shuffle away from it into the concept they have here on the left side. And he's going to make it a deep corner route throw. So I'm going to roll the clip a little bit. You see they kind of pinch the protection down here a little bit. They let this free rusher off the side. Drake is just shuffling away the whole time, gets pressure in his face on the left side anyway, because left tackle just loses, which is tough, but he's still able to make this throw. It's kind of a 50-50 jump ball, which I think sometimes you're just going to have to make in the NFL, and that's just the reality of it. I don't think this is an inaccurate throw, though, because truthfully, when he throws this ball about here, with the way this corner is leveraged, you're basically never going to get the ball over into this left side of the end zone the way that you want to. So I think it actually does make more sense for Drake to leave it back inside and let his receiver come back to it, which is exactly what he does here. Obviously, you get a little bit lucky of just the receiver playing it correctly and the ball falling where it does. But I think this to me was just an example of Drake understanding how to beat pressure looks, understanding how to throw with bodies in his face, and then just having the raw arm talent to rip it 30 yards and drop this one in the bucket like this.
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference between a boneheaded move where you're like, okay, he just lobs it up in the air, compared to all right, I can take the inside right of my receiver. He's got single coverage where the cornerback's playing outside towards the sideline. That's different to me than someone just lobbing the ball up in the air and just hoping something happens. He's still placing that to where it's either the receiver gets it or that pass is going to fall incomplete.
So we have another clip here. This, to me, I think is a very quick peek into some of the pre-snap just recognition that we get from Maye. What we're going to get here is, I think they were playing Duke. Yeah, I think they're playing Duke in this game. Anyway, Duke is going to get into like a cover 2 look. You can kind of see with the way that the corner is playing here with him being butt to sideline that he's probably going to want to play like in the flat here. And they obviously have split safety look. For whatever reason, this linebacker is like not pushed out into the apex the way that he should be. The safety's kind of yelling at him to get there. But basically, UNC is going to run like a speed out from the slot, which you would normally think trying to throw that into the cloud corner there is a no-no, and it is. But what Drake Maye is actually going to do is pin it on the receiver's inside shoulder and let him work back up the field, throw him away from the coverage, which I think is really smart. This is something I think we saw from CJ Stroud as a rookie this year, which to me is like just high level understanding of knowing how to beat certain coverages, like throwing a speed out into the cover 2 corner. Like I said, it's supposed to be a no-no. If he throws this out in front of him, corner can probably fall off of this and pop him, maybe dislodge the ball. I think that's a really tough play. But because Drake puts it on his inside shoulder, lets him go back up the field, it's a very easy conversion on 3rd and 5. And so that seems like a very minor thing, but I think for a young quarterback to have just that recognition and that like little bit of savvy, I think that's really what you want to see. All right, clip number 3 here. This is a more refined example, I think, of some of the processing you get from Drake Maye. You're going to get more of as close to an NFL concept as you're going to get at North Carolina. Number 1 up here to the top is just going to run kind of a clear out vertical. Slot receiver is going to run like a deep over. The right-hand side receiver here is going to run like a dig route. You're going to see Drake Maye go come all the way back and throw this dig route. And to me, it's not just that he gets there on time. It's not just that he can, has the arm talent to pin it on the guy. I think what's really most impressive to me is he understands exactly where this ball needs to be relative to the defense. You can see this middle of the field defender, if he were really good, he'd be able to like kind of fall off and threaten this window. And I think Drake is a little bit scared of that. scared is the wrong word, but like cognizant that this can happen. And so Drake, instead of like leading this dig receiver all the way to the middle of the field, and trying to, maximize yak, which would what would happen in an ideal world, in the perfect world, Maye doesn't do that. He kind of like, you see, he lets the receiver like kind of stop and settle into the ball because he doesn't want to run him into this defender. He doesn't want to run him into traffic and risk the ball getting defended. I think this is just a really good example of Drake having, one, again, the processing, the timing to get through this play, the arm talent to go pin it on his guy, and then again, just the cognitive awareness to understand where exactly the ball needs to be relative to defenders. You'll see it again from this angle, which I think is really helpful in understanding what window he's trying to get the ball into. I mean, again, he's just not letting his guy run into traffic over the middle. That to me is really high level quarterbacking.
I think this is also a really good example of his working the pocket and his pocket movement from a semi-clean pocket. You don't see it a ton at UNC, but he does kind of step up right into that safety zone and be able to have the ball placement, plant his foot. He wasn't necessarily under a lot of pressure, but still really good, able to like almost resetting. If he took another step up, he'd almost fully reset the pocket in that scenario.
All right, clip number 4 here. We're done with the big brain thinking. We're no more of that. The appeal with Drake Maye is that he can throw the rock. He can sling the pill a little bit. So I think this to me is a really, really good example of Drake Maye's just pure arm talent. He's going to have to reset the pocket here, get a little bit outside the pocket, and then just absolutely rip a post route 55 yards. And I think to me, it's not just that he gets it there, it's how fast it gets there. It's the arc that it gets there. So I'll run the play here. You see, he's going to get like, pocket's going to start to get pushed in. He feels this pressure off the left side. He doesn't know that guy's going to end up on the ground, but he moves anyway. You can see him reset here. Before you even see the throw, I want you to recognize where his foot is at. So his front foot here is at, okay, so I'll say his back foot. Back foot here is at his own 19-yard line. He's going to rip this ball, absolutely spin it, put it on his guy almost at the 25-yard line. That's like 55 yards in the air on a dot. Like, I'm going to replay it all the way back again. This receiver never has to break stride. He never has to really even go find the ball, like, adjust his track, adjust his path where he's looking for the ball. Maye just pins it on him, straight into him. Like, this could just be a track guy running straight, and he would have pinned it on him. So this to me is just like where you fully see the uncorked potential of Drake Maye's arm talent.
What I really appreciate about Maye's arm is that he's able to do that almost as a touch pass still. That ball gets to his receiver. It's not even remotely uncatchable. He barely just tucks that in there. I think that's a very underrated. He gets his body turned too, to where you can see him lean back into the throw, which helps him really still keep that spiral as he throws. His like throwing motion is still the same, but he has that shoulder tucked back to where he can put a lot of air under it. To be able to still place that on a dot, 55 yards, catchable, is just such a unique talent for a quarterback to be able to come in the NFL with.
Yeah, it's really hard to do, and to like not give that corner any shot at catching up to it. Again, that's just it's really, really hard to do, to be able to throw the ball that hard, that far, that kind of touch. It's just, don't see many guys who can do that.
All right, in this next clip, we talked a little on the audio show about his athletic ability and him running. Walk me through that here.
Yeah, this is, I think, obviously none of the running stuff is going to show up in the charting, but to me, a big sell with Drake Maye is just his ability to run with the ball. He can scramble a little bit, but I think, there's a big part of it where it's design run, whether it's QB draws, zone reads, all that other stuff. So what you're going to get here is Drake Maye's 1, 2, 3, doesn't like anything here. It's a QB draw, and he's just going to absolutely take off. Like, you just see every bit. I think what's fascinating about this clip in particular is you see every kind of athletic trait. You see quickness, you see like burst, through the hole. You see long speed, you see contact balance, you see vision. Like, literally everything you could imagine as a runner, you get it in this clip. I mean, just the bounciness that he's like kind of slalom running there at the beginning, and then he's able to break through the tackle, burst for another 10, 15 yards, and then still be difficult to tackle there at the end. Like, he probably squeezes another 3, 4 yards out of it just by refusing to go down. This to me is what I think separates Maye as a runner really from everyone in the class. Like, obviously Caleb can run a little bit. JJ can run a little bit. Jaden Daniels is a really good runner in his own right. I don't think any of the other guys have quite the same blend of quickness, size, balance, burst. Like Drake to me is just a little bit different. Like I said, I don't think anyone's quite, the rampant ostrich that Josh Allen is. He's probably as close as you're going to get, though.
That's the best comparison I've ever heard in my entire life. This is rampant ostrich. I think there's been a lot of smoke about Maye's rushing ability not being able to translate to the NFL. I think with his size, speed combination, like his scramble ability will translate. A lot of there's been comparisons to Justin Herbert. He came in the NFL rushing for like 300 plus yards. I see that very much here. You could tack on 300 to 400 yards a season with Drake Maye's rushing ability. He's got the frame to hold up to the hits. He's got the speed, the athleticism, kind of the ability to change his speed while he's running. He's not always running full speed. He's just taking what's in front of him. You need that as a quarterback to not just get slammed. Let's get into the bread and butter here of Drake Maye on our side, which is your success rate charting. This is his success rate heat map. Not the flashiest we've seen. Walk me through this.
Yeah, obviously, I'm going to start off with the good. The downfield stuff is phenomenal. Obviously, only in the yellow on outside the numbers, but he's on like the upper tier of the yellow average ish mark. So that to me is still pretty good. And then down the field, over the middle of the field, he's just sensational. I mean, you saw in some of the other clips here, like that post route he threw against, I think it was Pitt, just unbelievable ability to do stuff like that. Where it gets sticky with Drake Maye's over the intermediate part of the field. That 11 to 20, I think, is the big alarm bells. It's almost, his heat map is actually kind of like the opposite of JJ McCarthy in the middle, because JJ was really bad to his left, pretty bad to the middle, and then really good to the right-hand side. Drake is the opposite, where he's really good to the left-hand side, not so good over the middle, and terrible to his right-hand side. I actually think in both cases, it's related to footwork. With JJ McCarthy, I think JJ struggles a little bit with touch to begin with, but I think with JJ, it was also like he and Nate Tice pointed this out on Twitter very eloquently. JJ kind of will open up too far and overstride when he's throwing to his left. This is a problem that Mitchell Trubisky had coming out of UNC, and he'd never fixed it. And so that's why he would like end up sailing and just overthrowing in a lot of routes he would get out of sync and stuff like that. Drake Maye kind of has a similar-ish problem moving to his right-hand side, where I think when Drake kind of like shifts his like shoulders and all of his weight to the right-hand side, I think he kind of has a tendency to swing his back foot like too far around. And so he ends up at a very like awkward and acute angle to where he's actually trying to throw. So he ends up like kind of having to throw back across his body, which is just not very helpful for him. And I think that's why he ends up missing stuff. So again, we talked about it in the podcast show. I do think Drake Maye has some footwork problems. I don't think any of what he's missing here is like he can't make those throws or he's not seeing it or anything like that. I really think it's just like him getting his footwork put together, which I think is absolutely doable.
And you're going to see the yellow 90s at the bottom of this chart on the line of scrimmage. We talked about this a little on the audio show. That's one or two passes for him, because the success rate at that line of scrimmage is so high that if you're 38 out of 40 instead of 39 out of 40, that could drop you into the yellow, because the window is just so small on these charts for these prospects that if you're not 95 or above, you're going to drop in the yellow. It's not necessarily an alarming spot for us here. His man success rate, though, on the other hand, is something that you talked about on the show. Go over that a little bit for me here.
Yeah, the man success rate, we talked about it a little bit on the audio show. I think, again, I think it's probably a little bit of cope, but I just think those guys, that UNC offense, those receivers just did not get open consistently. None of them, I think, are very good route runners. Obviously, Josh Downs was in 2022, but in 2023, they didn't have any of that. And they had their best receiver was Tez Walker for about half the season, but he's not a Stephon Diggs, go get open, just beat man coverage type of guy. I can run very fast in a straight line type of guy, which is useful for some of Drake Maye's stuff down the field, but it's not very useful when you're trying to beat man coverage and really fit balls into tight windows. So I think that was a lot of the issue. I think maybe 20% of the issue as well is there are times where Maye is like not, I think he does have touch throws in his arsenal, and he can make a lot of those throws. But it's not like watching Phillip Rivers or Matt Ryan or Mac Jones, where it's like they very clearly have this loft and feathery touch to the ball, where they can put it over defenders that are in like underneath trail man coverage. May can make those throws, but it's probably not his best thing. He's better at just like if a guy's running in between zone windows, he can just pin it on him. That's a little bit more where he succeeds. So I think that's mostly why his man success rate is not, up to par with some of the hype and stuff like that.
The NFL draft is right around the corner, Derek. Where do you have Drake Maye placed of your quarterbacks so far?
He's my 1A. I think him and Caleb are both sensational prospects. I would take them both first overall if they were in different classes, but they're not in different classes. They're in the same class, and I would just slightly prefer Drake Maye. I understand the charting profile is not that great, especially for someone who's supposed to be taken first overall. But again, I've kind of highlighted some of the issues I had with their offense and some of Maye's inconsistencies, especially in terms of footwork, which I think is very fixable. Whereas I think a lot of the other traits that he has, whether it's pocket management, arm talent, some of his processing, being able to go 1 to 2 to 3 and throw confidently, that stuff to me is a lot harder to find in a guy you're taking in the draft than it is to just be like, oh, we need to fix his footwork. Like, okay, whatever, man. Like if you have the right coach, you can fix that stuff. So that to me is why I have Maye quarterback 1. I think he just has all the tools to be one of the top guys in the NFL at some point.
That's high praise for the UNC star, man. I mean, that's high praise from what I've seen out there. I'm with you in the praise of Drake Maye. I think he has all of the tools that JJ McCarthy has, and then just the extra juice of like he's got the body size, he's got extra arm strength, he's got a little bit extra on him that so far he's locked into my 2. I personally still prefer Caleb Williams as my 1A, but I'm not gonna split hairs with you on here. I like a flashy guy, man. I like that out of Caleb Williams. I'm not gonna lie. He's got the heart rate pumping a little bit. I get that a little bit from Drake Maye, but I'm gonna shoot for the ceiling of Caleb Williams in the class. But I love Drake Maye. Give me a pro comparison, because everybody loves player comparisons. We can't finish a show without a player comparison.
He to me is like if Justin Herbert had like 15% of Josh Allen's brain, where he has like a little bit of the like, you're a little bit out of control, you're a little bit unstable, make 1 or 2 plays a game that seem completely insane. I think I think body type wise, he's very similar to both those guys, but he's not as clean cut as Herbert, and he's not quite as insane as Josh is. So
just a perfect mesh in between there. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching this one. If you want to see the full or hear the full breakdown, go listen to the audio show. You can find that on Reception Perception anywhere you listen to your podcast. Check out the profile on the website. We'll be doing these every week until the NFL draft. So stay tuned for the next one.